I'm Kaye, and I'm a late bloomer. I'm from the South, and there's nothing I love more than corn, tomatoes, and watermelon. I knew if I had my first garden, I had to grow all three. Here's my tomato story. I was so eager to grow tomatoes, I planted 2 early girls in pots in January. They were 2 feet tall in March. My real tomato foray began that rainy day in the front yard when I planted 3 seedlings, a green zebra, heartland, and Cherokee purple. I thought the rain would give them a great start, and I was right. In early April, Brooke planted a brandywine seedling right next to those 3. Along with the red cherry, planted in the raised bed in March, I had a total of 7 plants, plenty enough for a good crop. My nightly prowls rounded up slugs and snails. Otherwise, the tomatoes were worry-free. This would have been an excellent time to start pruning. Meanwhile, the early girls in pots were changing from green to orange to red. By Memorial Day, they had produced a few tomatoes. However, the taste was bland. I turned my focus back to the tomatoes in the ground. By June 10th, my cherry tomato was out of control, and it had collapsed on my zucchini.
If there's one thing I can stress, it's give your seedlings enough space when you plant them. I had no idea how big my tomatoes were going to get.
I spent July staking and tying up the fast-growing tomato vines.
I think one more should do it.
By the 3rd week in July, I knew I had to crawl under my overgrown vines to find out what condition my tomatoes were in. I found lots of tomatoes. This was the work of a squirrel or rat. This, I learned, is blossom end rot. For every perfect green zebra, there were just as many brandywines with rot. The vines were so thick they had outgrown the opening of the tomato trays, so I removed them and found slugs hiding underneath. I discovered this leaf with a cabbage worm. I always wondered what the little round black balls were, the digested remains of my leaves. All in all, I wasn't too discouraged because there were so many tomatoes. Sophia dropped by to give me some company.
What's that string?
That's what I'm tying up the tomatoes with.
She was more interested in my blueberries than my tomatoes.
Of a blueberry. I eat. I'm gonna eat it.
Okay, go ahead.
All that work led to some amazing first tomatoes, but the weight of the tomatoes was pulling down the vines. It was August and time for some advice.
This is Jim, my neighbor, and he has been growing tomatoes for a long time, so I thought he could give me some advice about my out-of-control tomatoes.
Well, the first thing is that there are 2 types of tomatoes. There are determinate,
Okay.
which is short growing, and indeterminate, which just keeps growing
Forever?
and growing through the whole season. So the determinates are easier to control, but they both give marvelous tomatoes. It's just a question of ease of growing. Tomatoes are a sprawling vine, and what you can do is prune them in such a way that you end up with just 1 or 2 stalks instead of hundreds of stalks. You'll end up with fewer but better and larger tomatoes.
Oh,
The pruning I do mainly concerns these suckers that grow between the leaf and the ascending branch. I prune off this sucker, and that allows the strength to go to the branch, to the flowers, and of course subsequently to the tomatoes.
I asked Jim about the difference between hybrids and heirlooms.
I plant both. The advantage of the hybrids is a lot of them, the disease resistance has been bred into them when they hybridize them. But some of them don't have the flavor of the heirlooms. But with the heirlooms, you're taking a risk that there might be some diseases that you wouldn't get with the hybrids. This Lemon Boy is a hybrid, as is Celebrity, and they are consistently marvelous in this location. When I was a child, my parents had a victory garden, and one of the worst pests that they had, which is very common, was the tomato hornworm. It's a caterpillar about, probably 4 to 6 inches long, and overnight it can destroy a plant. I've been very lucky here because only occasionally do I see one. They are very difficult to eradicate except picking them by hand.
I just spent about an hour cleaning up my tomatoes, trimming the brown dead leaves, and wanted to show you this part of my good batch of tomatoes: cherry tomatoes, green zebra, and purple Cherokee. You like the garden?
By the end of August, vines were thinning out, but production was still high, except about 50% were lost to blossom end rot. Now it's Labor Day, and it hasn't rained since April, but I've still got plenty of tomatoes.
At this rate, I should have tomatoes till the end of September. My biggest success story. Yesterday, I went to a tomato workshop at a local garden store, and I learned that my regular watering of city water has really depleted my soil, and it's better to do a once or twice a week deep watering and a monthly application of biodynamic compost, worm castings, and organic plant food to rebuild the soil and protect my tomatoes against diseases, bugs, and blossom end rot.
I'm Kaye. I'm a late bloomer. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Okay, Jim, I have a question for you. How do you determine if they're determinate?
Look, we have to start again.
Wait, no, you have to wait till I say it.
Okay.
Okay, stand straight.
Okay.
Okay. How do you determine if they're determinate?